You join me today at the wheel of one of my favourite small cars. Yes, this is the Suzuki Swift, the Mark III. In this form, the 1.2 SZT Hybrid. Now before we get into the review, let's take a moment to hit that subscribe button. If you like reviews of interesting old cars, modern cars that are on the market now, then do hit that button and keep up to date with what's going on in the world of Furious. Now on with the review. Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and today we're looking at this, the third generation Suzuki Swift, a car which has been a fixture of our road scenery since the beginning of 2017. Now when you think of a B-segment compact car, the Swift meant to be the first thing that comes to mind, but really perhaps it ought to be, because these are absolutely fantastic, reliable, affordable cars with lots going for them. Let's take a look around and see what they're like. So first of all, let's look at the styling and the shape of this thing. Moving on from the second generation, it's been a gradual evolution. The car has got a little bit bigger, a bit softer edged. Also, the car has grown a bit of stance. These wings have become kind of chunky haunches, more so even at the back, where we have this strong swage line blending into the doors and then reappearing in the front. In previous models, there was a 3-door version as well. In this generation, it's 5-door only. But what they've done though, to disguise the fact there is no longer a 3-door option, but it kind of looks like one, they've tinted out the back window, they've hidden the door handle up here in this black moulding, so you can't see it's there. Then the door appears as if by magic. So to all intents and purposes, you drive down the street looking like you've got a cool 3-door coupe, when in fact you've got a practical 5-door hatch. Now, like the second generation, it's a fairly distinctively styled car. It's got its own unique character with this square front, curvy top, going into a long flat roof, and it's all very much standout Suzuki. This particular model is a 1.2 SZT Hybrid. So that means in terms of spec, we're middle of the range, so enough toys to keep us happy, but not breaking the bank with the cost of the car. Oh, well, it's absolutely freezing today, so it's quite nice to lift the bonnet and use this thing as a hand warmer. But it does more than that. This is a 1.2 litre booster jet direct injection motor. The petrol engine here generates 82 horsepower and 107 newton meters of torque, but it's far more than that. This is the hybrid version. Now this uses SVHS, Smart Hybrid Vehicle by Suzuki, which really trips off the tongue, SHVS. It uses an ISG system. Also tripping off the tongue is the integrated starter generator, which is a 12-volt lithium system which belt drives into the powertrain, generating an additional 2.3 kilowatts of power and an extra 50 newton meters of torque. So it gives assistance when the car is accelerating, pulling away, and as the car is slowing down and braking, it regenerates power back into a 10 amp hour battery under the car. That's up from a 3 amp hour on the previous version of this. All this means you get better economy, better performance, and only adds 6.2 kilos to the overall weight of the vehicle. So not only does this help with the performance, it also helps with the economy. The WLTP figures are 59.7 mpg, it's a 60 mile per gallon car virtually, and it's only 106 grams per kilometre of CO2 as well. So let's look at the back of the car now. Now first of all, as I mentioned, the styling is quite interesting. The roof line comes fairly straight back, so you've got good headroom inside, but the window line drops down and this haunch raises up, so the windows come down into virtually to a point, making the car look quite rakish and stylish. And that continues into this plastic trim containing the door handle into this lovely curved area which contains and continues the black strip of the back window, so the whole thing is very cohesive and looks rather good. Big solid backlights, the boot area juts out like a tiny bootle area. Inside there we have got a reasonably good bootle area. The drop down from the lip to the floor is fairly considerable. It's quite a lot in fact. But back here in the Booty McBooterson we've got 265 litres of space, which is more than respectable enough for a car of this size. The seats do of course flip forward, so if you need more space you can gain it. You're not going to be moving house too often in this thing. One thing worth mentioning though, when the seats are folded flat forwards, it's not a flat load area. The boot area is a drop lower than the seat backs themselves. In terms of amenities, you have got a light on the side. That's not automatic, it is switched, so you can manually switch it on and off. Don't forget to turn off or you'll flatten your battery. And you've got a large, fairly sturdy curry hook on the left, and under the carpet we have got a pumping kit, one of those horrible gooey things which everyone hates, me especially, but it does look like there's space for a space saver full-size spare wheel if you can go and find one from somewhere. I would always recommend doing that. Right, very gratefully inside the car, because it has turned very cold, very windy, and looks like it's going to rain. So let's get inside this car and look around the interior of this little machine. So first of all, let's begin over on the doors. It is a lot of hard plastic at the top and the front, but a little bit of sculpting line and a bit of shaping into the door, so it's visually quite interesting with the textures and so forth. We've got a nice metal door handle, feels really solid. That's something you do notice with these Suzukis. Everything feels really well screwed together. You've got a nice padded area of fabric in the door for your elbow and arm to lean on here, back here as well on the armrest. This front area of the armrest is hard plastic, but it is, well, it's solid again. Nice bit of colour contrast in there as well. We've only got front electric windows, you notice here, not electric rear windows on this particular model. Central locking window lockout, so you can really annoy your passenger if you want to, and electric mirrors, which is always good. Down below we've got huge storage bins here in the doors, so the front area is a big cutout for a bottle or a big gulp drink of some kind, so lots of space in both front doors. And you've got speakers down here in the door as well. Moving up to the dashboard, we've got a little panel of minor use switches down there, including traction control off, so you can have a bit of a play with this car, which is also good. So let's move across to the dashboard, and it's not a bad little bit of design going on here. A few shapes and colours to keep things interesting. We've got a fairly sizable, extremely good flat T-shelf area, so you can have your coffee up there. The windscreen is fairly steeply raked, which means we've got a good height area for your cups to sit on. Any other snack items will be going there. The only downside to this is, again, no ridge, so any spillages will go straight onto your knees. Be aware of that. Moving back to the dials, we have gone for a bit of an interesting mechanical look just here. Let's turn the ignition on. So instead of the fully digital design that so many cars seem to be embracing, and we've still got a rather attractive mechanical look. So we've got this silver outline with the white dials and the concentric rings look on the rev counter and on the speedometer. Fairly heavily raised white needles as well, so there's big depth in those dials too. It has the look and feel of a Japanese chronometer watch, with the sub-dials for the fuel and temperature hidden in there as well. So it's kind of like a high-end Seconda here in your dashboard. And giving it a bit of a sporty Alfa Romeo look, we've got the cowled dials with the silvered edges pushing forward, and the semi-cowled cluster area as well. All looking very cool indeed. Because with the Sport as the halo model of the range, there is strong sporting connotations and overtones to the car as a whole. In the centre there is a digital bit, which is your speed, your fuel economy, lots of other bits of information. And above all of the information down here, we even have a glowing red line, which is kind of cool up there as well. Also slightly Italian inspired are these rather cool eyeball air vents, which we used to find on Alfas, Lancias, Maseratis, even Ferraris back in the day, which are infinitely variable and look kind of cool. Interestingly, those are not mirrored on the outside edges of the dashboard. These are far more modern and contemporary style looking air vents. There's a lot of time spent on air vents in this review, I'm thinking. Underneath the air vents we've got this, similar to the doors, contrast white area, which is quite a stark contrast. This time it's dimpled like a big flat golf ball has been through a very big mangle, which just lightens and livens the cabin, giving it a bit more brightness and freshness, making the whole thing feel a bit more light and airy. Below that, large black plastic area for your glove box and cutaway for your knees of the passenger, so lots more space by doing that. Again, a 1990s Alfa trope. I'm starting to wonder if someone in the styling department had an Alfa 147 and they really liked it for a long time. And moving back into the middle, we have got our infotainment system. We've got FM, we've got DAB, we've got Bluetooth connectivity for media and for phone calls. And of course, we also have smartphone connectivity with things like CarPlay and Android Auto, which does make things so much more convenient and useful when you're on the move, because obviously you can integrate your life by having the diary and the maps on the phone working with the car, which can be so much more convenient than having to get in the car and read off the screen of your phone and tippity tap into the car. Underneath that we've got proper, oh thank you so much Suzuki, proper physical actual dials for your heating and ventilation, air conditioning. Underneath that we've got an area to stow your phone when it's plugged in. And we've got multiple power outlets, a standard 12-volt size cigarette lighter socket. We've got a USB power outlet, which also doubles as your CarPlay integration connection. And we've got a standard 3.5mm headphone jack, so if you want to just use a wired connection from a headphone port on something, you can do that as well. Two very commodious cup holders down here, so even the tallest of cups and chunkiest of cups can fit in there, although you do have to angle them a bit carefully to get in and out below your HVAC controls. Behind that we've got the manual gearbox. Manual 5-speed is standard. There is a CVT option. Behind that manual again, a proper actual handbrake. I'm so grateful to have this. Seat-wise, we have this same very soft, comfortable fabric we've seen on previous Suzukis, which are somehow paying homage to the Mercedes 3.2 Star in their fabric. And these are very squishy, very soft. Not a huge amount of lateral support in these things, but they are comfortable to be in, and they've got nice tall headrests as well. In terms of headroom, there is an absolute ton of it. You can be very tall in this car with no issue whatsoever. You will notice that the door frame comes in about my head height, but then the ceiling is a lot higher. So if you're very, very tall indeed, like 6 foot something, you're going to have to be ducking a wee bit just to get in here. Let's have a quick look in the back. So climbing in with the concealed door handle, big square rear door opening, so easy to climb in. More or less full set straight in. The seats in the back are in fact very, very high up compared to the seats in the front. So you do feel like you're a bit higher up in the car with a touch less headroom, but still, I mean, I've got a load of space above my head. I could be wearing a tall hat again and not have an issue with this at all. Lots of knee room, surprisingly large amount of knee room in fact for such a small car. My feet aren't being squashed under the bottom of the seat, which is again a good thing. We have got another bottle holder in the door card. Only got manual windows here in the back. We do have an armrest moulded into the door though, and we have a single cup holder, so we can have fights over who gets that. Now before we drive off, I'll also mention with these seats, they are manually reclining with just a single pull to sit all the way back or spring all the way forward. So one thing that's always marked out the Swift is it's always been good to drive regardless of what generation of car you're driving. Suzuki's engineers spent a lot of time fine-tuning the chassis and the steering to make it as an enjoyable a drive as possible. They spent a lot of time actually here in the UK and over in Germany making sure that the chassis was good and the steering was sharp. And though it may feel a little bit more subdued in fact than the previous version of the car, it still feels like a lot of fun and very connected and very focused. So you've got a nice lithe chassis underneath you which handles bumps and jolts with ease. It grips through corners effortlessly and makes every day a rally stage. Suspension is coils all round, McPherson struts at the front and semi-independent trailing arms at the back. So performance from the little 1.2 hybrid isn't blistering, 0 to 60 in 13.1 seconds and a top speed of 112, but really it's more than those basic figures because it's a lot of fun to drive. The way it clings on and feeds back information to you makes it into a really enjoyable car to drive and be in, even if it is just a small shopping car. It's honestly far more than that. That little extra 50 Newton meters of torque from the hybrid system gives it so much more kick. And the steering is really communicative. It's not too light, it's not like you've put too much assistance into it, it's something you can feel stuff coming back through. If you wanted more power, obviously there is a sport model you can go to, but as a everyday small car, this is plenty enough. Now, like every other car on the market now, in order to get your NCAP ratings, you have to have a lane departure warning. If I go over the line right now, it starts flashing at me. Fortunately, this one doesn't wrench the steering wheel out your hands like so many do, which is actually quite dangerous. It just flashes at you. And there is even a nice, obvious control for it on the steering wheel, so you can flick it on, off, mute it effectively, compared to the other ones which are hidden down under your knee somewhere or in 7 menus into an on-screen system. This is really nice. Now this is something about the Swift and in fact the entire Suzuki range which makes them so likeable, so enjoyable to be with and live with, in that they have this lovely, slightly old school feel of accessibility and connectedness with just the way the car drives and the way the controls are laid out. Everything is easy and everything is just simple. The only thing that doesn't fall into that category is the volume control on this touchscreen, which is a swipey thing, and so a little bit weird to use sometimes. So I'm not massively a fan of that one aspect. Everything else though, big chunky solid buttons that you can find in the dark without even looking. So as well as that lithe chassis and sharp steering, you've got a nice light throw gearbox. Easy to just chuck it from one gear to the next. There's a little bit of feeling of resistance as you go into each ratio, so you know you're slotting in there. And the brakes on this thing are really quite powerful. The car's not heavy at all, but discs on the front, drums on the back, it's more than enough to haul this thing up really quite effectively. And with these big upright windows, the upright A-post and the high sides of the roofline mean you can see so well out of this car. You've got incredible visibility. You honestly don't need it, but there's also a reversing camera in this thing as well. In fact, also the biggest problem with this car is the fact that it's just such a hoot to drive, that you will always be getting terrible fuel economy because you will always want to drop a gear and just buzz it through the next corner and just feeling the car working underneath you. It's brilliant. And speaking of feeling the car, you do feel like you have a lot of space in here. And that's for two reasons to do with these seats, which although they're not as bolster heavy as they could be, do give you an awful lot of space. They've lowered the seat bases of the front seats to give you more headroom, which is huge headroom. So you do feel a little bit more sports car-like sitting that lower position as well. And also they've moved both seats out 10 millimeters each, so you've got more elbow room in the center of the car. So it feels far more spacious when you have passengers. The thing that will strike you about this car is how well everything feels screwed together. It may not be the fancy soft touch plastics you get in a more expensive model, but nothing rattles, nothing feels loose or it's like it's gonna ever feel loose. And these things just do not break down ever. Check the reliability and customer satisfaction reviews and you'll always find Suzuki's doing incredibly well. And does that satisfaction and reliability come at a price? No, it does not. This thing only costs you 15 grand. And that 15 grand gets you a lot for your money. Not to mention your air conditioning and your CarPlay and your reversing camera. You've got blind spot monitoring, heated mirrors, dual brake force distribution, rear traffic blind spot reversing thingamajig. Notably though, on this particular trim level, there aren't heated front seats, just the blanking plates to remind you that you should have paid for the extra upgrade. If the mid-range T isn't to your taste, there is a lower spec L, which will come in a little bit cheaper for you, a higher spec 5, which will throw in a few more toys, and of course the sporty warm hatch, in their words, Sport. There is even the all-grip go anywhere off-road variant of the thing, so you really can do absolutely everything. And the hybrid is finding its way into all the variants now as well. Well, thanks for joining me today here at the wheel of this rather fun Suzuki Swift SZT. Swifts have always been one of my favourite small cars. They're just so lively and engaging. Great fun cars to be in that just never break. If you want a car for life, this is your modern Volvo 240, but in a far more compact and economical package. And that hybrid system does mean we are now incredibly economical as well. If you've enjoyed this or found it useful, please do hit like and subscribe, and join me again next time driving something completely different.